Hi, welcome to Superhero Rundown. I am Crimson, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. There's too many people making too many problems, and not much left to go round. Some people are divided on climate change. Hey, don't click away, don't click away. But the science is proven. We have to do something about it, or we'll have to sell our lake houses to Ben Shapiro. I'm not looking forward to that. I mean, it's Ben Shapiro, but also he wouldn't know what to do with a lake house if he had one. Just look at how he doesn't know what to do with the words he has. So, in light of this very real possibility, I'm going to talk about poison ivy in Hollywood, real-life climate change activists, and finally what we can do as a society to not ignore climate change and actually have a planet in 18 months. By the way, if I die because of climate change deniers, I'm going to haunt the shit out of them in their nightmares as they drown in their oil cash. Yeah, I'm done being nice about politics. If you don't like it, get out. Poison Ivy is very important as a role model. Obviously, she's come a long way from her criminal days, and Uma Thurman's portrayal of her was a big help. The important thing is that according to Sarah Century, Poison Ivy deserves better. It makes sense to make her a more complicated character. Dr. Pamela Eisley might have dedicated her life to extremism, but she acted mostly out of genuine altruism and concern for the well-being of plant life. Her environmental cause has real weight in a world where nature undeniably suffers under ongoing abuse by humanity, both in the real world and in the DC universe. And Uma Thurman paved the way for us to think about Poison Ivy as a climate change activist. Yet even at her most off-the-wall, when she's talking about the environment, Ivy still isn't wrong. She hands Bruce Wayne a proposal that suggests saving the planet at the expense of human life. Like no environmentalist ever, she shrugs off the potential cost of human life, which allows Wayne to condescendingly say, "People come first," and hand the dossier right back to her. She says that humanity's days are numbered as a direct result of our mistreatment of the planet, which, in using the context clue that this train of thought is laughed at and ridiculed, chances are that threat sounded a lot less absolutely true in 1997 than it does in 2020. And not to mention, Uma Thurman was so good in that movie. Sarah goes on to say that in the 1990s, both fictional and real-world environmentalists are often portrayed as mentally incompetent, inviting more mockery than actual thought. I mean, it's part of the reason why some people are so indifferent to climate change today. This was easily preventable, and we didn't do a thing about it. But we can apply Poison Ivy's activism to real life, without the murder and the superpowers and the murder, or we could keep those things since no one else wants to listen. In September 2019, Lily Danziger wrote, "There was just a funeral in Iceland for the country's first glacier lost to climate change. The Amazon rainforest is burning, and not just because climate change is making everything hotter, like the wildfires in California that are expected to get worse every year, but intentionally set ablaze to further the interest of the commercial farming industry. It's not bad enough that we're seeing the effects of decades' worth of negligence, even as we're forced to confront how much damage has already been done. Pathologically greedy industrialists, straight out of a comic book, are brazenly making the situation even more dire." She continues on to say that we need to get supervillain angry and demand substantial, large-scale change from the people who are at fault. Just 100 companies were responsible for 71% of global carbon emissions between 1988 and 2017. In that context, our paper straws and ride shares are essentially meaningless. We need to go after the people in charge, like Poison Ivy would. Maybe not to kill them, but at least to hold their feet to the proverbial fire and demand action. And that's where we turn to the world of Hollywood, because they suck at this. Hollywood ignores it. They have the most talented and powerful actors, writers, directors, producers, and they aren't talking about it. They're rehashing old ideas and continuing franchises that make money. Their backyard is on fire. During World War II, there were a lot of war movies. Same with Vietnam. We crave stories about current events. It's in our nature as humans. What's important to realize is that we need a dialogue that speaks truth about our climate. characters that show us how to overcome our fears of living different lifestyles, and stories that move us to action. If not, well, that's all, folks. Films are the most accessible form of art, as well as the most human. It breaks down social barriers, sparks conversations, and gives us avenues for talking about controversial subjects with people holding different viewpoints. Going back to Danziger, she explains that it can't just be a march or a boycott. We need to make things visible. We need someone to speak up for us. We need thousands and millions pissed off so something is actually done. Enter Greta Tunberg. At 16 years old, she could easily decide that the damage past generations have done to the planet isn't her responsibility. But instead, she's inspiring people around the world with her passionate and wise pleas for action, leading by example, most recently by sailing across the Atlantic in a zero-emission yacht in order to attend two important meetings in the fight against climate change. She opted to skip the emission-heavy long-haul flight and instead make a statement about how much bigger we need to be thinking when we talk about change. She's asking all of us to wake the hell up and fight. One teenager skipping a flight didn't save enough jet fuel to decrease the carbon emissions of the commercial air travel industry, but that wasn't the goal. The goal was to show the level of commitment we'll all need to rise to if we're going to stand a chance. The point was to demonstrate how not to be discouraged by the immensity of the challenge, to keep the issues at the forefront of her own mind and of ours. She's leading the charge. She yelled at adults and people didn't take her seriously. We watched Jason Momoa say the same thing she is, and he's taken seriously because not only is he a man, but also an adult. Even the media coverage has been different between them. Jason delivered a rousing speech. Greta lashed out. Maybe she doesn't want to die in a natural disaster. And the problem isn't just people, it's our cultural heritage. We're going to lose valuable artifacts that we're studying around the world to climate change. Cultural heritage is confronted with various kinds of disaster risks, especially in areas prone to natural hazards such as floods, fires, earthquakes, etc. These hazards have caused destruction of significant cultural properties in the past. These include damages due to the Great East Japan earthquake and tsunami in 2011, which damaged numerous heritage structures and traditional fishing settlements, Haiti and Christchurch earthquakes in 2010 that affected historic cathedrals and public buildings, floods in Pakistan and Thailand, which caused extensive damage to archaeological sites, and bushfires in Greece in 2007, which posed a grave threat to the Parthenon. My job field in which I have my master's in, it's in jeopardy. And I'm fucking mad about it. We are dying not just as a race of human beings, but our cultural history is being wiped away too. It's terrifying. It used to be scary when terrorists would burn museums and steal gold, but Mother Nature is much more terrifying. Rohit continues. These hazards are adversely impacting cultural heritage sites. For example, a cloudburst in Leh, India, in August 2010 caused flash floods due to unprecedented heavy rains, which caused destruction of vernacular adobe heritage. Storms in Western Europe earlier that year flooded many historic town centers, such as Paris, France, York, United Kingdom, and Lisbon and Porto, Portugal. Undoubtedly, climate change is increasing the number of disasters and their impacts on cultural heritage. Climate change is not only exacerbating disaster risks due to catastrophic hazards such as floods and cyclones, but also is posing risks due to slow and progressive factors. For example, increased temperature may thaw permafrost, causing destabilization of heritage buildings and infrastructure. Variability in precipitation and humidity may result in increased efflorescence by capillary action in walls, frescoes, wall paintings, mosaics, and statues, or cause wet frost that may damage porous materials. Moreover, increased wind or changes in its direction may increase abrasion and degradation of rock art and damage to archaeological sites and historic buildings. But buildings can be rebuilt, you say? True, but you're missing the much bigger picture. It is important to mention here that risks to cultural heritage are not only limited to monuments, but also extend to urban areas in which these monuments are located historically or engulfed by urbanization. In fact, these historic areas have not received the attention or support they deserve to maintain their vitality and quality. protect their structural integrity and heritage values, and stimulate their local economic base as their populations, occupancy, and economies undergo various incremental processes of transformation, as a result of which the traditional urban boundaries are breaking up, disturbing delicate ecological relationships and exposing these areas to increased risks from external hazards. Moreover, local communities are losing control over their own resources as traditional management systems are getting eroded and increasingly replaced by alien systems, which in many cases prove to be ineffective in reducing risks to local communities inhabiting these areas. So now that we know all that, what can we do? This is the world we live in, and these are the hands we're given. Use them. Let's start trying to make a place worth living in. Let me explain you a thing about this malware. The human malware has done a magnificent job of screwing up everyone's lives, but it also showed us how easy it is to stop pollution and combat climate change. The shutdowns of business and travel during the pandemic have cleared the air in cities as pollution has fallen sharply. China, for instance, experienced a 40% decline in nitrogen dioxide, a pollutant produced from burning fossil fuels in cars and power plants, earlier this year compared to the same period last year. And for the record, it isn't just China. The United Kingdom and India both had positive impact on pollution from the malware. We shouldn't be surprised humans got infected with a dangerous pathogen that was circulating in wildlife. With more and more people encroaching further into wild areas, the threat of an event like this has been clear. Scientists who study emerging infectious diseases have been warning about this scenario for years. The 2003 SARS outbreak, which also passed from animals to humans, ought to have been a wake-up call. Whoops! It's almost like, shit! We should listen to doctors and historians and cultural activists and environmentalists. You know, the fucking experts we trust with these sorts of things? Oh fuck, the trees are superheroes, you know. But trees do more than keep us company. They are an important bulwark against climate change, cooling the air around them, capturing and storing carbon, supporting other species, and cycling moisture. Protecting and restoring forests, then, is crucial for the planet. A research team last year found that helping forests recover and regenerate could soak up a large share of all the greenhouse gas emissions humanity has ever produced. Other researchers were skeptical of the scale of these calculations, but otherwise agreed that nature-based solutions like protecting forests are critical to fighting climate change. We can take cues from those around us, like Jason Momoa, Greta Tunberg, and even Poison Ivy. They're all mad about climate change and want the people in power to do something about it. I want someone to do something about it. I don't want to die mad about it, nerds.